God.
It's like that decision day.
I know. God, it's been a long time.
It feels like yesterday to me, though.
I know, doesn't it?
That was,
It's still winning.
better not be like that this year.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I won't put up with it. At least I don't think I will.
I hear you. Well, it's a more intimate group here. Oh, today's the Mets game?
No, they lost last night.
Oh, they lost last night, so they're out.
Yeah.
Oh. I should know that.
We won't tell you.
I won't say it.
A lot of people think the Mets didn't make it.
There he is.
Shoot outside and get some sun today? What? Do I look like it? I'm just no, it's beautiful out. It's just, oh, yeah, it's so nice. So nice.
Oh, I take this position seriously, trying to be the professional that I am.
6:30.
We don't get to do very
Boy, isn't this intimate?
What happened? What?
You're so close to me.
Yeah, too close?
No, it's
You want me to move over?
no, I'm kidding.
I'm not sick or anything. I'm healthy.
Perfect.
Oh, boy.
Then we're good.
So you want us to wait till November? Well, they voted on it, so you
I think so. You have time to go back to I'm teasing.
Okay, I can feel the cold.
Push that thing through. I know you did. I knew they would have questions. I'll send around. I'll tell you. I can. So actually, what we should do, joking aside, is find out what's the something here, like an email. What's the legality? We do that. I know. I know. Other groups have been involved with it. Just committees.
Approve what?
It's the IPS, the investment policy statement for the OPEB trust. And what happened was we only met as a committee last week on Monday. And we did some revisions. And then it went to the manager
Right.
to also make further revisions.
We need a special meeting?
Well, the
They
question,
are? Or not?
we'd like to approve it because
Tonight?
then they can get started.
Right.
Instead of waiting a month until after the election and all that stuff. But we haven't had a chance to circulate it to everybody. No, we only got it this morning from Morgan Stanley. We're okay with
Is
it.
everyone pretty much in agreement?
We're okay with it,
Oh, okay.
but people haven't had a chance to see it.
Oh.
So the question is, can we
Wait, or just vote on,
do a special or can we approve it by email?
good point.
If we circulate it?
I don't think you
Bring any of my
can.
papers.
We've done that for some
Wouldn't
committees.
the public,
Yeah, I'll bring it.
would they? I know, but.
Know that question.
Oh, my God.
It was fun. It was a lot of days. You and I was too many days. That's right. Just too many. We can't do that. Got a little air. Tight out of Decided 10 minutes for trouble.
We're gonna be short today.
Maybe you and I can switch chairs.
No, I need to be high for my knees. So,
So this is gonna be good. I can just crawl under the table.
okay. It is 6:34. Are you ready? My name is Harry Fisher. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation Monday, October 21st, 6:34. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll request everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. And just for the members' benefit, what you have to do is there's a switch on the top of the mic. Pull it towards you for on, push it away for off. And they have to be shared. So the second item on our agenda is the assessor's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow members of the BET. I'd like to present the assessor's report for October 2024. First of all, the personal property declarations were sent to all businesses. They will be due back for November 1st. This is for the 2024 grand list. The 2025 revaluation contracts have been executed. They've been signed. So we will be all set to start as of January 1st, 2025 is when we'll start working on the revaluation for 2025. As far as litigation is concerned, last month we had one commercial property withdrawn, and we had two commercial properties settled with a tax loss of roughly $72,000. Does anybody have any other questions for me tonight?
Yes, Ms. Harden.
So I just wanted to point out in your exhibit that as Mr. Raymer would say, there's a big smile.
It's smiling, yes.
On the median ratios. But I would like to point out, since you're saying that we're going to start on the reval on January 1, that it shows that residential properties are selling in excess of 1.4 times what you have valued at them previously. So that may be either a good sign if you're planning to sell your house, or a bad sign if you're going to be paying your taxes, huh?
Yes. Because we have, in September, we had 50 sales. And I think if we break it down by certain, because I've been watching this very carefully, and I think depending upon the price point and the price range determines where we're going, but I don't think the overall grand list is going to go up that much. I would imagine it would go up. I mean, the property just sold, Trump sold property just sold about 20%, 20 to 25%, not 40. But we'll see. We'll keep a good eye on it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Ms. Moriarty?
No, I just want to ask a question about the permits, and you may not know specifically, but clearly, commercial permits is higher in '26, and residential permits are down versus prior year. But in the most recent month of September, there was that one, commercial was 30 million higher than the year prior.
That also
is a-
includes exempt properties in commercial.
Okay, it
Yeah, so
does.
that's why, so that's included.
Exempt.
Yeah, it includes exempt properties in our commercial. So that's why you see the skewing there. If we probably be a good idea to take the exempt permits out of there if we can, but it might be a little bit problematic for us because sometimes it's listed under contractor and we have to go look at each parcel ID. But anyway, yes, the commercial might be a bit skewed because it includes both the commercial and the exempt properties. And yes, you lost about $100 million from last year as far as permits were concerned.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Mr. Weisbrod?
so this may be a little bit out of sequence. Oops, thank you. But there's a pending law change in Hartford relating to the methodology for assessing property tax on motor vehicles.
Oh, that's
And-
happening, yes.
Yeah.
It's happened.
Oh, it has been signed?
Yes.
Okay, great. And so, any sense as to the impact that's going to have, and what, if any, measures we could consider to alleviate that?
So here's what happened with the motor vehicle bill. First of all, it took out trailers and ATVs from taxation altogether. So you will have lost about $1,400 trailers and what have you, and their assessment was $2.8 million roughly, so that was about $33,000 in taxes. You're going to lose that because we're not taxing little boat trailers and those little trailers that you throw you take to the leaf dump. What has happened that is of significance in the motor vehicle pricing, and I think we're going to, and this is why my number as far as the increase in the grand list is very conservative this year. So what they did is they decided to, instead of using the actual NADA value of the market value of the car, we are going to all assessments are now going to be based upon the MSRP of the car. And that's never going to change. But what happens every year, hang on. What happens every year is the depreciation of the car goes down. But here's the real kicker, and I think we're going to lose. I've estimated that we may lose around 12% of the motor vehicle valuation, the motor vehicle grand list this year. If you bought a new car in 2024, you would pay the MSRP and you would take 70% of that. Now what's going to happen, and you're going to take the MSRP, you're going to take 85% of that value, and then you're going to take 70% of value. So you're losing 15% of value off the top on all new motor vehicles.
What about depreciation?
So every year, there is a schedule now, and I can send this to you, but this is the schedule. So the first year, you're at 85%, and every year after that, it goes down 5% until it hits 15%. So, and it's based on MSRP. So if like when we went through COVID, some used car values went up. You will never see that again. It's based upon the MSRP value. Once the car is valued, that's going to be the car's initial value, and as long as it's on our list. And then after that, depending upon how old it is, it's then going to be depreciated, and then you're going to take 70% of that.
Who's going to keep track of all this?
Use your mic, please.
Well, the Department of Motor, we have,
My question was, like, how do you track? You're not going to sit there and track every individual vehicle.
yes, we do.
You are.
So, of course, that's what we do. We have about 54,000 cars in Greenwich. So what happens is the Department of Motor Vehicles every year gives us a list of all the motor vehicles. And so how this is going to happen is we have our vendor that does our administrative quality data services is now going to take our cars. They're going to get the list from the Department of Motor Vehicles. And most of those cars, we have the state has a contract with, and the Department of Motor Vehicles has a contract with valuation services that value cars. So we will get a majority of the cars will come priced. There's usually about 10 or 12,000 cars that are not priced that we have to price in our office, and that's probably going to be the same as true. But instead of looking at the actual retail value of that car, we are now taking the original MSRP of that car and depreciating according to the statutory depreciation schedule in the statute.
So-
Okay. Yep.
This may be a stupid question, but are we able to determine a different mill rate for motor vehicles than other property? And
That
could-
would require, I think, well, or it will require you to go before the RTM and create a separate kind of taxing district kind of idea.
So it can be done. Okay. It's something, I'm not sure we want to do that, but it is an option. In other words, to square up that 12% loss that you're talking about.
Well, it looks like if it's 12%, you're basically going back to where you were pre-COVID as far as the overall valuation of your motor vehicle list, okay? It looks like you're going to lose about, and this is just my estimation, what I did is I took the 23 grand list and I figured out, and we priced them using the MSRP, and we figured out what the difference is as far as what we priced it at versus what we're going to have to price it at using this depreciation schedule. I don't know where this, but I have about 12%, which is about $1.5 million worth of tax revenue. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there's a little delay when you
sorry.
turn it on before
Okay.
before you hear anything.
Sorry, no, just, I'm sorry, how is it done currently? You said, so I'm sorry if I missed it, so the only
So
difference is.
now you have a car,
Yeah,
okay? And if you just bought a car, I take the current value of that car and I times it by 0.7%, because I assess everything at 70%. So if you have a car that's 10 years old, I'm looking at the NADA book, which is now the J.D. Powers book, and I'm going to go look up at the retail value of that car. So say it's a $20,000 car. I take that and I times it by 0.7. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to take the original MSRP of that car, irrelevant of what it could sell for currently. And I then am going to depreciate it according to the depreciation schedule that's in the statute.
there was no depreciation before, even on new or used.
Well, they were, but we were looking at what the market. Right.
It was only at that one. The depreciation was
Well,
only factored in at that time of purchase. So like if you bought a used vehicle for, let's say, that 20,000, 5 years down the line, you were still using that 20,000 number,
Hang
correct?
on, no. I'm looking
Oh, you
up the
always look up the
value of
value.
your car.
And you get it
Just
done.
when you,
I
as
gotcha,
if you
I
walk
gotcha.
into the, if you walk into the
Got it.
dealership and say, hey, my car's now worth $10,000, yeah. We were always looking at the market value of that car as of October 1st. We are no longer doing that at all. Yeah. Mhm. Okay, so,
Any,
Follow-up question on that?
yes,
Just along those lines. So, Lauren, what happens if somebody moves to town, they have a 10-year-old car, and they don't know what they paid, they don't have a record of what they paid for the
Doesn't
car?
matter.
How do you get that info?
okay, when you look up a car in those pricing books, the NADA value, the NA or the JD Power, they always have the MSRP. They actually have the MSRP of cars that were back in the 1990s. The MSRP is not that hard to find or to figure out.
And you're not getting into the details of whether it has a good stereo system, or you're just
That's
using
where
a
you're going
Baker.
to lose money.
Okay.
Because the MSRP value is the car, especially in today. You go into and you buy a car today, you say, I want this, I want this, I want this package, I want that package. That may or may not be reflected in the VIN number. So that's a part of that's part of the reason why you're going to be losing value in your MSRP values. It's not the actual, so depending upon how each manufacturer determines their VIN numbers is how we price the cars. MSRP values, you'd be surprised, you can find them out, and actually most of our, and this is how we kind of figured out what, our estimation was, because we do have MSRP values on all these cars in our list. We just don't publish them, but we do have them. So,
anybody else? All right, Ms. Tarkington moves, we accept the report. Is there a second? Second. I'm sorry, was that Mr. Cow? Mr. Alfano seconds, Tarkington moves. Any objection to accepting the assessor's report? Seeing none, it's accepted, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now move on to item 3. I would move that we move into executive session at 6:47 for the purposes of discussing 2 legal matters on the agenda, Becker versus Town of Greenwich and Massarides versus Town of Greenwich et al. Seconded by Ms. Vasiliotis. Any objection to moving into executive session? Seeing none, we're in executive session. We'll now move to item 4 on the agenda, which is requests for budget adjustments. They are all routine, so I will simply read them into the record. CD1, which is Community Development Block Grant, $5,000 additional appropriation for a CDBG grant to Q197/various accounts. SE4, Emergency Management Operations Center, $25,000 additional appropriation to A44057228 for shelter training equipment. It's a grant being applied for based on it's a reimbursement grant based on purchases.
Can I just,
Certainly.
as a point of information, the resolution is part of the package that we were given, but there's no standalone resolution that we're voting on. So I don't know if people reviewed it or looked at it or,
Yeah, we had a discussion, you were at the Budget Committee, right? We discussed this?
right.
Yeah, and there were a couple of things that I thought Roland was going to look at. Sorry he's not here.
Yeah, the question was whether, the BET typically does not accept grants. That responsibility is the RTM's.
Correct.
The BET approves the appropriation, and so that was going to be looked at before tonight's meeting to see whether that action is even something we should take up. It was noted that the resolution document in our packet says BET and RTM, but that was kind of filled out by us, I think, when we entered the grant. So the question is, are we now obligated to take action that we typically would not take?
And it does say reaffirm in the paperwork, so.
I think it's a good idea to approve it, and then
But
this is what we
I'm
said
I'm
afterwards.
asking, what are we actually approving?
You've got that page there, right?
That's not the page that I saw online, so I don't know.
It was, I
17.
think, like 47 or something like.
Page 17 on the PDF in tonight's package.
That was different from what was in your package on the budget committee. Because that just has Fred Camillo on it. Oh, it does have BET, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It would have to be separated out because it has to be
Well,
really
and that's
two.
what I'm saying, so what are we actually approving? I mean, I would think that if we are approving a resolution, it would be approving the appropriation, or at least, and separating out to the RTM.
Yeah,
But
the thought was to put this on the agenda for the BET, subject to Roland's determination, and I guess we don't have that tonight, so maybe
But I do think
SE4 should be held off.
the resolution, the resolution is written right there. It's only 2 sentences. That the first selectman has the authority to enter into the documents, and that the first selectman's authorized to deliver all the documents. I don't think there's,
No, it says that this is a true and correct copy of a resolution adopted by the BET and RTM at its duly called and held meeting on whatever date at which a quorum was present and acted, and the resolution has not been modified, rescinded, or revoked, and is present in full force and effect.
and then it says resolved, so
Right, but
that's
we
the
never
resolution.
did adopt a resolution, so how can you say that this is a true and correct copy of a resolution adopted by the BET and RTM?
I think we're being asked to approve this resolution tonight.
I think we should approve this resolution and then work out the details afterwards, whether we need the approval or not. At least it's done, so we don't have to have a special meeting. That's what we did in the budget, too.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so we've been talking about SE4, which is the resolution for grant acceptance. So those are the 3 routine items. Is there any further discussion of the routine items or any effort to change that they're routine?
So I have a question, since we're talking so much about SE4.
Into the mic, please.
I'm sorry. Since we're talking about SE4, the resolution, should we just pull that out and do that separately?
Yes, I would agree with that.
So I'm going to make a motion that we vote on SE4, the resolution for the EMOC for $25,000 separately.
I'll second.
Okay.
Isn't it true that any member who requests that,
Yeah, I thought it was just based on a
It's not a
request.
motion, it's a request, so
Okay.
it occurs.
Yeah,
So I
so it
requested
occurred
it.
on your request.
So I requested it.
Okay, so we will vote on the routine applications, CD1 and SE4. Are there any objections to unanimous consent? Seeing none, those pass 12-0-0.
Was that seconded? You moved it, Harry. And
Oh,
then-
I'm sorry, would you
And I'll
second it,
second it.
please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
12-0-0.
12-0-0.
So I'll move SC4 EMOC for $25,000, the resolution for the grant acceptance.
I'll second that.
Okay, and so I'll just say that we're doing this as an abundance of caution, and it will be reviewed and handled appropriately by the town's budget director.
Can I just ask a
Just as
question now?
my conversation.
Is there?
Yes.
Is there any practical implications to receiving the grant with this motion where we're delaying it now? I mean, can anyone speak to what this would mean in terms
Well,
of
it'd be
timing or
tomorrow
deadlines or dates of the acceptance of the resolution and the appropriation of the grant? I don't want to have an unintended consequence where we're doing something, quote, an abundance of caution, which might be the right thing to do, but then we don't know that that might have created a problem with the grant itself.
You mean if we withheld approval?
Correct, until a later date.
So
I just,
we're not withholding approval.
But the idea is we approve it, we approve the resolution tonight.
oh, we are gonna, I didn't hear that part.
That's-
Okay,
that's-
Can't hear it.
I
Okay,
just-
We
so
just
we're good.
made it non-routine.
We
No
just
problem. Thank you.
separated it out
Okay.
as a separate vote.
Yeah.
I just didn't hear that.
Okay.
Thank you. Good.
Because it still has to go to the RTM.
Okay, that's,
Right.
that I get, but that's the approval of the grant itself.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, SE4 for approval. Is there any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, that's approved 12-0-0. Okay. You get to the second page, the controller's report, please.
Good evening, BET members, the Comptroller's Report. I'll start out with the American Rescue Plan, the monthly ARP report. It's amazing how quick the time has gone. We started about 3 years ago on this with the ad hoc committee down in the town hall meeting room with Fred, Ben, Leslie, Raymer, and
Andy Deuce.
Andy Deuce. So, the first deadline is fastly approaching. It's the obligation which we met a long time ago. All we're doing now is tweaking the $31.4 million. I believe we might have something on the agenda for next month relative to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. You can see that all that money earned about $1,445,000. And if you all recall, during the budget deliberations, $1 million of it is going to go over to the general fund to help offset the budget for the current year, which will leave us probably $500,000 or $600,000 when we get to the budget for 25-26. As I said, the deadline for obligation is this December 31st, and then after that, they've got 2 years to spend the $9 million that's left over. Moving down, please stop me if you have questions. The annual audit is commencing. We're moving along quickly. We're ahead of schedule. This year, we should be done by the OPM state mandated December 31st deadline. We do not have Nathaniel Witherall holding us back, nor do we have GASB 87 or 96. So we're moving along. And I know Scott Kell, $700 million for retirement. We're at $700 million at the bottom of page 1. We were at $622 million a year ago. We're at $655 this year. So we looks like we might be over 90% funded in the retirement pension plan.
Great news.
Yeah, and also the good news also is the OPEB. Kudos to the IAC and the OPEB members. I was looking at, last year we were 52% funded. The liability was $76 million. So we're looking at 50-something million. So we might be over 70% funded with the OPEB. So good news, both of them plans. And again,
Let's not change the market.
I mean, you do have the hard work of the OPEB. We'll be looking at later tonight, led by Nisha, with the IPS, and then you have a new chairman, which you voted on a month ago. So I will entertain any questions on the Comptroller's report.
Ms. Tarkington?
So this isn't a question, but Pete, I believe in your report, you mentioned that the insurance carrier for the fire engine, the replacement fire engine that we approved a couple months ago, maybe a little bit more than that, the insurance is now $800,000. I believe the number that we heard at the time we approved it was lower than that, so this is good news.
It's in the report, I think it was 500 and, I have it in there, it was 551. Again, Megan, working with the carrier, $804,000, we'll put that in the capital non-recurring fund, and we use that to offset the engine you just approved recently, that,
Positive
what's
news.
Lubowicki's title, assistant chief or deputy chief?
Assistant.
He told, through his hard work, he moved it up a year, so.
Yeah.
Good for him.
On that note, I had a conversation with Megan D'Amato the other day, and on Mike Mason's initiative, she's taking a close look at the possibility of some FEMA money coming to us. That it's where we thought it was only limited to loss of equipment or loss of equipment in the case of a fire on a highway, there may actually be a provision to be able to get some FEMA money. So it's very preliminary, don't count on it, but it is being looked at by our risk manager.
Great.
Yes, Ms. Moriarty?
Two things, just on that note, if that doesn't pan out, this seems to me a reasonable request to ask our state legislators to work with the state to get coverage for damages of something on a highway. But just moving past that, I just want to ask a question. The $800,000 value said that it was the full replacement cost based on the 23-24 values for our equipment. And yet, I think at that point even, we were spending more for new fire engines. So a broader question is if the schedules that we, I guess, supply to the insurance carriers as far as our replacement costs, and this will become an issue, I know, as we go for renewals, to confirm that they do reflect current replacement costs and it's not the purchase cost at the time that it was done.
Megan assures me that that's been updated to current replacement values.
Well, is the 800,000 is probably not an updated number.
No,
You're
that
saying
was
the newer
previous number
ones.
that existed at the time of the accident.
It wasn't updated. in
But
this-
even 800 in 24 was not the replacement cost for those vehicles. So what I don't know is if we're lagging in updating our schedules, and it's something that we should look at.
I'll follow up with Megan.
Ms.
And
Fastiota?
just to follow up on your comment, Leslie, I did reach out to the Hartford delegation to ask if there were any monies and any funds from the state, since this was a state roadway. And the answer was no, that they would have to bond for the uninsured part of it. But they would be looking into possibly setting up a risk fund, if you will, for towns that do coverage on the highways and have damage. So, so that conversation has already happened.
Anybody else on the comptroller's report? I take a motion to accept.
I move that we accept the controller's
Ms.
report.
Tarkington moves to accept.
I'll second.
Ms. Moriarty seconds that. Any objection, unanimous consent? Seeing none, the acceptance of the report is 1200. If you could move to the treasurer's report, please.
The treasurer's report, we've got over $300 million in cash. I don't have anything that jumps out at this time. One comment is, if you look at the capital projects, the $36 million, the balance, we had a conversation this morning about cash flows and CIPs, et cetera, et cetera. I had borrowed last January using cash flows that said that we would be in construction at this point. So I was, just to follow up on that and how that works and how we borrow, I rely on either the building committee or Al Manelli used to be great as far as giving me cash flow numbers. So this is a little bit high, but what we do is when we do bands every year, we have the ability to adjust, okay? And we could accurately put the amount of cash flow per project in with adjustments each year before we permanently bond. Having said that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? Seeing none?
I move that we accept the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Leslie Tarkington, seconded by Leslie Moriarty. Any objection to acceptance on unanimous consent? Seeing none, that's 12-0-0. Thank you, Mr. Menarski. There are no items checked under item 7, standing committee reports, or BET liaison reports number 8. So we'll move to special project teams report. Both of them checked are under my responsibility. The CMS, there's a link in the packet to the most recent report to the RTM. I'll just remind everybody that we are in the bidding phase, and we should have more information mid-November on the status of the bids, I believe. Then there's also the Julian Curtis report that was given to the RTM for its October meeting, which is pretty self-explanatory. There is a conversation starting about the cafeteria being overcrowded.
Harry, before you go on, can I just interrupt for a moment and just go back to a point you were making a moment ago about CMS? Is there a date that bids are due by?
Yes, and I just don't have that in my head.
I see, okay. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
but it's coming up in November.
Got it, thank you.
Sorry. So there is discussion coming up on the Julian Curtis cafeteria and exterior. Expanding the cafeteria, the exterior would be an obscene amount of money. So, if anything happens, it's, in my mind, got to happen on the interior, but that's a longer-term discussion to be held. And I'll remind the building committee that, there's some other things that it's bumping up against, and not to expect anything major to happen. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Tarkington?
So, yes, Mr. Fisher. It does in this report say, please, it's renderings, plans, and next steps. Please see attached to this email the renderings provided to the Greenwich Planning and Zoning Committee, which provide good visualization of Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the JC project. I was just wondering if you could send us the link to that so that we could see what these renderings are.
Oh, I've got a file that I can send around.
Whatever way
Yeah.
you want, but just even the link or something would be
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Will do. That's for Julian Curtis, you mean?
Julian Curtis. It's in
Yeah.
this.
And can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Also on Julia Curtis, so you made a statement that, in your opinion, the cafeteria expansion is too expensive to consider. I'm just wondering if you can share the data that you've looked at in terms of square footage per student, the number of lunch waves, the time that the kids are in there for lunch, on which you made the determination.
Yeah, they start at 10:30, they finish at 1. The problem with the cafeteria is it has a raised area at one end that's not used. There's 1,900 square feet, 1,916 square foot, if memory serves me. I don't know the standards for per pupil square footage, but there are things that can be done, like taking out that stage and changing a couple of things about lines that would make the space more efficient. The new principal there is supportive of that. An exterior renovation would probably be in the order of $15 million, and that has an unknown of whether or not it would cause the sprinkling of the entire building.
Thank you for that information.
Anything else? Okay, no old business, new business. We do have on here the approval of the OPEB investment policy statement, but that's really still in its drafting phase. So we're gonna skip over that for next month. We do have a resolution to approve the appointment of the OPEB chair. The resolution is resolved that the Board of Estimate and Taxation appoints Robert L. Hartfeld of the OPEB Trust Board as chair of said board for a term expiring on June 30th, 2025. So I move that resolution.
Which comes out of the committee, right? So it doesn't need a second.
It doesn't need a second because it's a resolution out of a committee. That's correct. Any discussion? Seeing none, any objection to approval of that resolution on unanimous consent? Seeing none, that's approved 12-0-0. Okay, moving right along. Next is review and possible approval of budget guidelines for fiscal '26. Do you want to discuss where we are on this?
So we presented a budget guidelines that was discussed amongst budget committee members last Wednesday. I believe that was the 16th. We received a new set of budget estimate and proposed budget guidelines from our two colleagues on the budget committee, which Ms. Moriarty and I discussed yesterday in a collegial manner, hopefully. And then we had a process that was to be done for today. However, we met and there was a lengthy discussion about certain issues, and which primarily were things like capital and, and the capital model. And that's sort of a very quick summary. I don't know what kind of detail you would like. Would you like more detail? What would you like?
Move forward.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that the budget guidelines that were presented and discussed at last Wednesday's meeting be moved.
And I'll second that. So it's been moved and seconded that the budget guidelines as presented by myself and Ms. Tarkington at last week's budget committee be approved by the board this evening. Discussion on the item. Ms. Moriarty.
So there's a real transparency issue, which is probably evident since I don't think a hard copy of what was discussed at last Wednesday's budget committee was ever posted on a website. I'm not sure it was distributed to the full BET. I think it was just distributed to budget committee members. I just want to explain the key issues that Mr. Weisbrod and I have again with those budget guidelines, which were the subject of discussion this morning. They really fall into a general category of a difference of approach to good fiscal planning. First is there's a difference of opinion on what the purpose of the guidelines are. The guidelines text describes the budget numbers in there as being information of what's known now, and that between now and the time that BET considers the budget, information will change and there are pluses and minuses on many line items. In the guidelines themselves, though, when I read the information in the charts, doesn't reflect that, okay? So it doesn't reflect it in several key areas, and some of it's relying on our finance department staff providing input. So we did, the finance department staff said the inflation number for the non-salary account should be slightly higher. That works out to $180,000. That's not something that we should disagree with, but you've got the lower number, and we used the staff number that they had there. But the key areas of planning, which are not represented in here, is number one, Nathaniel Witherell. The numbers in here for Nathaniel Witherell, yes, we need to fund the fiscal '24 loss of $5 million. But again, the expected cost or contribution to Nathaniel Witherell by the town is listed in there at $500,000. And that is not expected to be the case. We're expecting Nathaniel Witherell to move closer to break even before debt service and capital investment, and those two items would exceed the $500,000. So it doesn't reflect, I think, reality. We are faced, if we make a policy change now to more accurately reflect Nathaniel Witherell performance, the fact that we're fully funding 1 year's loss and then we want to properly fund the next year's loss, I can see why we're getting caught in funding a 2-year cost for Nathaniel Witherell. But so that was a big area of discussion. Second is the risk fund. The risk fund is lower than what typical policy had been. We're down to $2 million now, and I believe that forecast would be significantly lower by the end of the year, and it is good fiscal discipline for proper planning to say that, yes, we are going to be subject to settlements and litigation, and that fund should not be run down to zero before we take any fiscal action to invest in it. But the biggest area of disagreement is really in the capital. And this board has been struggling with our capital funding and our approach to capital for several years now. And this has been the subject and a key part of disagreements when we come to budget approvals. And the budget has not been a unanimous approval for, I don't know, 3-4 years or so. And despite frequent requests for this board to put on its agenda to focus on a capital model and really what it will take to fund the projects that we've already approved, and not annually look on a short-term basis for trying to minimize the funding of capital, has never been done. This board is not doing its job in looking at what it's going to take to cost to fund the capital that we have. There were numbers run by our finance department to show if we approved zero capital for the next 5 years, which is not a proposal that I'm recommending, but we still run into cash issues. So the fact that this budget proposal does not adjust the capital tax levy and has arbitrarily modified the next 5-year plan based on no input from the departments is not work that I think can be approved by this board without further analysis and discussion. And so this process of, first of all, not letting the budget committee continue to do its work, and we left this meeting this morning saying we will continue to meet and try to find common ground. You're making a motion tonight with no advance notice to the rest of us, to 6 of us on the board. Just says, one, our process is broken and would continue to break further.
Mr. Deschamps?
I just want to get a clarification, just to make sure that my facts are straight. Did the budget guidelines, were they disseminated by Ms. Tarkington, the Budget Committee Chair, to the entire BET or not?
I believe they were disseminated to your Budget Committee members with the expectation they'd be shared among your caucus.
Because I haven't seen it, so I'm just going to say, for me personally, it's like you're asking us to take a vote to approve these guidelines. Just a few minutes ago, we agreed to postpone the IPS adoption because we hadn't had a chance. It's still in draft. It hasn't been shared. It wasn't shared with the full BET. It would be similar to me, where we would want to wait until we had an opportunity to read and understand the guidelines. It's an important document. My understanding is historically it's had significance for the town. It may not have significance recently by the way and the timing in which it's been crafted, but historically it's had meaning. And so this committee has historically felt that the budget guidelines were an important document and should be socialized and understood by the group here, and agreed to or not is a different matter. Maybe we won't agree to those, maybe we will. But we certainly can't agree to it this way. And Ms. Moriarty just did an excellent job, I think, outlining the concerns that she has about the substance of the document itself. I sat in the Budget Committee meeting this week, and it was my understanding at the time, and I guess I was mistaken, and that Ms. Tarkington and Ms. Moriarty and the Budget Committee members were going to work bipartisanly to try and find a draft document that they could agree to, and that doesn't seem to be the case at all, and that's fairly unfortunate.
Just to correct you on the IPS, that was withdrawn because it's still a work in progress.
So is this document, it sounds like.
We presented a document, I'm sorry it wasn't circulated to you, but there's every reason to expect, for the town to expect this body to provide guidelines. Last year, it wasn't done until the November meeting, and that caused a fair amount of dysfunction. It caused the superintendent of schools to basically reject the guidelines, dismiss them. There really is, an obligation of this committee to act on the guidelines. As it goes to some of the things raised by Ms. Moriarty, it's a lot of the capital financing process, that's going to be discussed in the Budget Committee as we go through the budget. It is every year. It's not that we don't deal with it. We do deal with it. You may not be happy with how Republicans have dealt with it, but we do deal with it. As for Nathaniel Witherell, that was a surprise fostered on us over the weekend to change that to a $3 million current year appropriation instead of what has been past practice of making up the deficit in the following fiscal year. As to the risk financing, do you want to discuss that, Karen? The risk financing was also a surprise to us. I mean,
Oh, that's a lie.
no, it's not a lie.
Well, Mr. Fisher, just like you accused me of having participated in the generation of this Exhibit 1 because I sat in one meeting with Ms. Tarkington with Roland when I expressed these same concerns 4 weeks ago, and to say that I had participation in this Exhibit 1 was not correct. The discussion about the risk fund and Nathaniel Witherell, that's no surprise also. They were expressed in that meeting 4 weeks ago. They were expressed last Wednesday in our discussion at the Budget Committee about the guidelines. They were reiterated this morning in our discussion about the guidelines. And excuse me for being incredibly surprised that you're even making a motion to approve the guidelines. That's not how we ended our meeting today at the Budget Committee. 6 hours, 7 hours later, you approve a different tact without any advance warning to us to me as a member of the Budget Committee or any other member of this BET. I just don't know how this board is intending to function. And, if you're going to exclude 6 members from every decision, then fine, you have an extra tie-breaking vote to do that, but I'm not sure why you expect cooperation on our half.
Mr. Weisbrod? Pull it towards you.
So to say that this is a disappointment would be an understatement. I would just start with the fact that the guidelines are not even in the budget book. They're not even in the material that has been disclosed. We have the public listening to this, and no one in the public domain who's listening knows even what we're talking about because the guidelines have not been included in the packet. And it is an extremely reckless, dangerous, and unprecedented step to ram. You can ram through. You've got the votes. Go right ahead. Ram it through. But if you expect cooperation, collaboration, and bipartisanship, this is not the way to do it. Last year, it took 4 days to do a budget that normally gets done in 1 day. And you want to get a budget done in 1 day, it's your budget. You will own every single part of this budget on your own without any input, collaboration, or frankly, analysis and common sense that we are prepared to offer. How can you vote on something that's not even in the book? It's not even distributed. It simply isn't included in the packet. Never have I seen anything like that. Furthermore, the capital number that's in the budget material that's been there for a number of years represents an irresponsible derogation. We are looking at a number that will cause us to violate statutory requirements in 2 or 3 fiscal years. And there's been no discussion, debate, input, evaluation, or thought as to what that means, how that will be addressed, and what the consequences are. We have a cliff, we've talked about it ad nauseum, that has to be addressed. You cannot have happy talk and wish it away with a silly number that you put into a guideline that has no reflection in the reality of what has already been appropriated and approved both by the BET and by the RTM. You can cut to your heart's content future projects, but the appropriation for Central Middle School and Old Granite School, which has already occurred and been approved by the RTM and the BET, will in and of itself cause us great danger vis-a-vis statutory requirements. And so there are solutions to this. There is discussion to be had. You have not called the Capital Debt Policy Committee. You've refused to do that. You refuse to discuss it in any calm and appropriate way at the Budget Committee. Go right ahead, ram this through. That's your wish. You have the votes. You have the power. It is not democratic and not in the norms of the community or in all the time I've served on this committee. I'm extremely disappointed.
Can you cite the statute to which you refer, please?
The statute says that the town of Greenwich is
I
not
want a
allowed.
citation, please.
The statute says, and we know it, we have our controller here who can confirm it, and you know the statute as well as I do, you cannot borrow money to pay debt service. It just isn't allowed by the state of Connecticut. We've been saying this forever, and you know it. And if you want, I'll get our controller who's standing here to confirm that.
I was asking for the citation, which means the reference number, please.
Mr. Minarski, can you confirm that what I said is accurate?
No, that's not the question.
I don't
being
have, I am
posed
not on the legal
through
team.
me.
I am not the legal staff.
I can't, you just made an accurate, you made an accurate statement, but I'm sorry, I don't know the exact statute number. It would take, I
Okay.
can go look it up, but the
Thank you.
the
Thank you.
the
It's an
statement
accurate
that you,
statement, and
yeah.
Harry, you know it
Yeah.
to be an accurate statement.
We haven't violated it.
No, you haven't violated it now. But the data, the projections, the budget book shows that in 2 or 3 fiscal years, we will violate it. It's in the model that has been included in the budget book for 2 years. And if we don't start coming to grips with it, it's dereliction of our duty as financial stewards
Okay,
of the community.
You're getting repetitive, please. Mr. Selps.
I was very pleased to be able to vote in favor of the budget last year. It was the first time in my 3 years on this board. And I thought the budget actually represented a compromise last year. It was, as Mr. Weisbrod had observed, a long-fought process. But I actually thought we were going someplace towards building a little bit of consensus. This, asking us to approve these budget guidelines with very little consultation and frankly non-circulation of the full guidelines, is the apotheosis of unilateralism. As others have observed, if you have the votes, you can vote it down. You can vote them in if you choose to. But what you're really saying to us, the Democrats, is you disregard everything we have to say. You don't really give a damn what we have to say. It is, you will own the budget, as Mr. Weisbrod said, but to those of us who try to work with you, there's not a way to understate, there's not a way to overstate what a gratuitous slap in the face this is. I'm really profoundly disappointed and disillusioned. You can't unbreak certain plates after you've broken them. And this one, you threw the whole plate of crockery at us.
Just quickly.
Yeah, Mr. DeChamps.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Isn't there a better way forward here? I mean, we haven't seen the guidelines in any meaningful way. We haven't had an opportunity to discuss them with you guys. It just seems to me that it's really poor governance. Like, we're not serving the town well when we do things this way. Your point's well taken, Mr. Fisher, with respect to wanting to get guidelines out in a timely fashion, but that does not mean then, therefore, we should forego good governance, that we should, just basically pass this without half of the body. And I assume my Republican colleagues have seen this. I don't even know if you have. I'm assuming that you have seen it. It could well be that Ms. Tarkington and Mr. Fisher are the only two that have seen it. I don't know the answer to that. It's a question. But assuming half of the group has seen it, and half of the group agrees with it, then perhaps you have the votes. I don't know if you do. But I would urge the chair, who is working, I think, in many instances, to work in a bipartisan way, to work with us and find a better way forward. Let the Budget Committee finish its work. Let the concerns that Ms. Moriarty very articulately stated be addressed, and work together to create guidelines in an expeditious fashion. Let's not delay it. Let's get it done this week, but let's not do it tonight in a way that gives zero confidence to any plain reader. Any reasonable financial person who reads these guidelines will know that they do not come with any credible review by this board. And that is not doing our work.
First off, it was circulated to my entire caucus, and it's my understanding that it was circulated to your caucus. If you didn't see it, it's not my responsibility.
Wait a second. Can I just say something?
Yeah, Mr. Alchak?
You're saying it's not your responsibility. I mean, in the spirit of cooperation, it may not be your legal responsibility, but aren't we all here trying to work towards the same goal? One of the things that I've seen, and I'm new to all of this. I'm new to the committee, and Leslie Talkington came to me early on and said, she asked me for my feelings about how did I feel joining this group, and I responded by saying, I'm really trying to go out of my way to build bridges with all of my Republican colleagues. And I have to tell you that, we talked about this earlier today. We've had an exceptional experience working together on the IAC. There are committees that are really working well together. And so, we're not here putting a gun to your head. We're asking, can we have some more time to review this, please? And in the spirit of cooperation, please work with us, and let's all try to, play well in the sandbox together.
Anybody else? Ms. Aurora?
From my colleagues. It looks like a lot of us don't know exactly, who, what, where, when, why, but my understanding is that these guidelines were worked on with Ms. Tarkington and Ms. Moriarty, worked on these together with Roland and Pete over the last 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Our caucus got a look at those a couple weeks ago. My assumption, of course, is that Ms. Moriarty would have shared the same with your caucus. I'm not sure if that was done or not done, but again, that's the assumption that we all have. I know that Ms. Moriarty circulated a different version of the guidelines this morning that was at the special meeting today. saw those a few hours ago. And I guess the only feedback I have on those, the guidelines from this morning, is that they're very far apart from what was circulated by Ms. Tarkington. And I'm not saying even if I take no position on what Ms. Tarkington circulated, I know what Ms. Moriarty circulated is very far apart. So if we are truly wanting to work together, I'm not sure why we're so far apart at the outset. And even at today's meeting, why, I didn't get a copy of those either, right? So really the only interest that, at least from my perspective, or many in our caucus perspective, of why we wanted to approve these guidelines today was precisely because a year ago, we were criticized very heavily for not approving the guidelines ahead of the Board of Ed releasing their budget, which we know is coming up next month. And, the guidelines, again, are a guideline, right, of where setting a framework for where we need to give some signal to our departments. I think the biggest discussion always is capital tax levy, Nathaniel Witherell, and we seem to be far apart this year like we were last year. So there was not any, at least intention for it to deceive or to not share. Our assumption was your caucus leader had shared with you what she had received, and our caucus leader, and in this case our budget committee chair, had shared with us. So I hope you can trust that. That's what we think, and I hope that you've at least seen the version from a month ago, because that's the only version that we have seen also. And I think that's the version that is in front of you today. I just want to add those comments. I don't know if it's helpful, but I think if we are really truly wanting to work together, then we all have to be transparent, including, I didn't see Ms. Moriarty's till about an hour ago also. So I don't know when you all saw those.
If in case these schedules, the schedule that is in contention, was discussed 3 or 4 weeks ago, coming to the Budget Committee meeting last Wednesday with a new version of it would have been better than coming to us over the weekend.
I don't want to go tit for tat on this, but first of all, the budget guideline document that Ms. Tarkington discussed last Wednesday at the Budget Committee was only sent to me Tuesday, the morning before. There was no text.
Leslie,
Yes.
because I did ask, so I heard that. I'm sorry I wasn't at that meeting. So
That's true.
That's true. So the day before, so
No, I
less than
understand,
a
but
week
is that,
ago-
let me just clarify,
Yeah.
Leslie, because that's exactly what I heard, and I wanted to speak
Mm-hmm.
to you on this. So is that the same document that both you and Ms. Tarkington were working on for the past month with Roland?
I have
or-
not seen any document prior to next
No,
Tuesday.
but you'd seen the schedule.
No, that,
I have not seen any text.
You had
Text,
seen the schedule.
excuse me, I'm speaking. I did not see any text to the document, which is equally important to the schedule. The schedule that I saw one time, and I raised the same concerns at that meeting as I just raised now about the issues of capital, the issues of risk fund, the issues of
no, I got it,
Nathaniel
but the
Witherell.
text of the guidelines, Leslie,
Tuesday before our Wednesday
you had
budget
never
committee.
seen that a month before, so when you were
Not at all,
working with.
and I have asked repeatedly to be included in meetings Ms. Tarkington was having, and I was not included in any meeting except that one single meeting of let's look at Exhibit 1, which I could produce on my own. There's no magic to Exhibit 1, and there are some key assumptions in there.
Okay.
But the
Okay,
same.
I'll take your word.
Same
Okay,
issues I
thank you.
have. The document that, as a proposed, and most of the text, it was modified. These 4 key points that I raised are the same ones that have been raised from the beginning.
Gotcha.
The document was shared that David and I worked on Sunday morning, was sent to Leslie. And I did share Leslie's document from last Tuesday with my caucus, so.
But you
Mr.
had not seen it until. since
I had
last
not
Tuesday.
seen it till
Okay.
Tuesday.
Okay. That was not what I was under the impression, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, call your vote.
What? I frankly was not expecting this level of acrimony.
You gotta be kidding.
David, that's out of order. Please. It's my inclination to call a special meeting within a week's time and deal with it then. Would that be acceptable, Ms. Moriarty?
So as we left the meeting this morning, that we were hoping to work on it and to see where we can find areas of consensus. So I agree that's better process for the deferral and to allow other members of the board to opine on issues within it if they haven't had a chance to discuss them. Setting a date is always difficult, but we can attempt.
I'd like to suggest that we call a meeting for Monday, the 28th at 6:30. It's before the RTM, but I would think that we could deal with it so people could still go to the RTM. I'm sorry?
2 of my kids have birthdays on that day, so 2 out of 3, so I really can't do the 28th. I'm sorry.
Ah, okay.
Are we invited?
No, I'm not invited.
All right, then. They have the same birthday, but they're not twins. That's pretty amazing. Tuesday, the 29th.
My wife has cataract surgery.
While everyone's looking at calendars, I want to thank the chair for making these accommodations.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Anybody have a conflict on the 29th other than Karen doesn't have her calendar with her? I'm sorry?
Morning is not.
No, I'm talking evening. 6:30.
Yeah.
So, no, my wife is having surgery on that, cataract surgery. I don't know whether she'll be able to be left alone for the evening, but,
Having just gone through it, she will be able to.
sorry?
Having just gone through it 3 weeks ago, she will be able to be left alone.
All right, if you think so.
Can we do morning or
Only doing
no?
one eye, so.
Do one eye at a time.
No, I understand, but,
Can we do morning or no? We don't want to do
no,
morning.
morning would be worse. 'cause
Morning's
that's-
worse.
I've got-
Samantha?
On the 29th?
Even this room? I'm sorry?
The registrar of voters has this room as well as downstairs. They have this room starting at 6 p.m. until 9 p.m.
Or the Board of Ed.
Yeah, we could meet at Havermar. We'll figure it out. All right, tentatively contingent on looking at Karen's calendar, or she looking at her own calendar, that came out wrong.
Sorry.
We'll meet on the 29th at 6:30 in the evening. And I'll talk to the registrar, because I don't know why he would need this meeting, or this room on the 29th.
He always does.
He tends to block things out beyond what he needs,
On what? On guidelines, okay.
even if we had voting machines in here. But
We all do what we
this is used for the absentee ballots, which I'm the moderator for, so I'm pretty knowledgeable about this. Okay, so we will move off of that subject to our next subject, item 12 on the agenda, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. We have a long list of minutes that Ms. Moriarty and I worked a lot on. I know that Ms. Tarkington has read every single word.
Because I had questions, right?
Is there any discussion or any changes suggested to any of the minutes as listed on the agenda? Mr. Selps?
When I saw the minutes, I actually read them myself, and I gave
Ah, okay,
Scrivener's error.
the Scrivener's errors, but you incorporated those. Oh, this is in the packet?
It's two redundant words it says June in June. So if we can remove those from the May 20th meeting minutes, right? The OGS report, which we'll identify in the minutes, but it's not a substantive change. It's a Scrivener's error.
Well, can we move forward then, subject to
Yeah.
a Scrivener's error correction?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have
Do you have some changes?
just
Scrivener's.
same consequence.
Okay.
Okay, so I will move approval of the minutes for the dates in the agenda. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Ms. Tarkington seconds. And approval would be subject to Scrivener errors to be worked out by Ms. Moriarty and myself, probably very minor to do. So is there any objection to approval of all those minutes? Seeing none, those are approved 12-0-0. Thank you. This gets us caught up, which is important. As acting chair, I'm going to see that I keep going on it. Yes, sir.
Is everybody in attendance at every one of these meetings?
That I'm told by law department doesn't really matter. You can still
You can still vote.
even if you were not attended.
You have the opportunity to read them and
Yeah.
to look at them.
Okay. In my chair report, Samantha gave me a copy of the final BET and BET committee meeting calendar, which she'll send to all the committee members tomorrow morning. I want to thank all the committee chairs for getting the work done to get these on the schedule. As mentioned, I'm going to continue as acting clerk until such time as we resolve that. The only other thing I've got to report is that I've stepped off as the EMAC liaison, and I've put Matt Deschamps on that. Matt's got a lot of experience with the EMAC. We had a long conversation about EMAC, its dysfunction, and, you know, that there's really no attention to, as much attention to numbers and proving out initiatives, and that it's really had a bit of a negative impact on the town. But I think I have confidence that Matt's going to grab the ball, run with it, try to get it to focus better and all of that. Other than that, I don't have any comments. We will be taking up a number of things in November, so please do pay attention to the agendas and things. There's a lot coming up. We're expecting Nathaniel Witherell to come before the Budget Committee to report as indicated that they would on the progress toward the objective of a break even before debt and capital. So that'll be important. And then, as you've heard from Mr. Minarski, there's also the Affordable Housing Trust and needing to reprogram some of the ARPA funds.
Also North Street Bridge.
And North Street Bridge will be on the agenda to release the conditions. I'm surprised that since the public meeting that was held a little while ago, I've heard absolutely nothing from any of the constituents. I don't know if you've heard anything. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Alfano?
So moved.
Mr. Alfano moves. Mr. Kalb seconds. All in favor, aye. Thank you very much, all.
Rather shocked.